Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil, and I will be your master of ceremony this morning. Welcome to UAE building by Khazanah National. We have with us two very distinguished authors, Dr. Loh Wai my old friend, and my mentor. I'm Mr. Jeffrey Xiao, and they are the authors of a book, a very special book called Turbulent Trade of the Straits Port of Penang. But before that, I would like to acknowledge and also welcome our chairman, Big City, Dr. Anwar Fazal, and Dr. Richard Engelhardt, who is our advisor. So it'd be absolutely wonderful. Let's not make this into a Toto would hate this because I know her very well. She wants it to be very informal, very friendly, and thank you so much for setting so many friendly faces from the days of Penang story. We also have with us Kus Alma and other notable Penangites and Lawrence Loh, our director as well. Okay, so how this is going to proceed? We will invite the authors to the honors by with a small lecture about their book. Then there will be a Q&A session. Then I will invite Dr. Anwar to say some pertinent facts about trade in Penang and the book as well. And then, of course, before that there will be a Q&A. And then we will do the honors of launching the book officially. Alright, so without further ado, can I welcome the authors, Dr. Loh, to start. Mike, so one. Go here.
Friends, fellow Penangites, last but by no means least, those with an interest in Penang's history. This book on the history of trade and shipping on the Straits Port of Penang has been given the title Turbulent Terrain, looking at the obstacles Penang's encountered in the period 1746 to 1945. And all the obstacles they had to navigate in their quest to earn a living, and the processes they went through to overcome the problems they were into. The book is not for readers looking for a quick read, reluctant to plow through details which may be tedious, but which are the prerequisites to support views which challenge received perceptions. Long-standing familiar themes oftentimes pass over, especially refer to alternative interpretations of past developments and events. But to those who value substantiation of perspectives offered, looking for evidence, or if you like, proof, of facts, especially with the awareness these days of study of fake facts, even as the doctors actually have long existed. They would appreciate what can be defined as history, which is based on evidence as opposed to myth, fiction rather than fact. However, if one wants to go against the grain of the usual explanations of the rise and fall of the mercantile fortunes of British colonies, then there is a need for verification of information put forward, one's propositions, and one's arguments. Nonetheless, hopefully there's sufficient to spark an interest in future researchers and non-academic writers with more accessible, catchy writing styles to breathe life into the many stories of the past, bringing attention to the narratives yet to be given a place in the chronicles of this location, home to many of us today. You may ask, why more Penang history? This probably raises another question. What is the significance of many stories of the past? I venture to answer with examples.
This for the slide.
Okay, these are small topics. Suggest.
Oh, the other way, yeah. Are there?
Remember, the uphill climb, we all have problems. Okay. What is the significance of the many stories of the next past? Before that, I draw your attention to an outstanding novelist. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie must watch a TED Talk. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. She warns us that if we hear only a single story about a person or a country, we risk a critical misunderstanding of both. Recounting two examples from her own experience. First, as an 8-year-old from a middle-class Nigerian family, when introduced to a poor boy on a visit to his village, she was shocked to find his brother a craftsman. As the picture in her mind of the poor, how possibly can they be skillful and capable of producing beautiful objects? The second, the American college roommate, who could not see beyond the traditional notion of Africans, who could not possibly have anything in common with Americans. Chimamanda's reply, Maria Carey, to the question, who was her favorite singer, came as a shock to that roommate. But then the tendency to commercialize, to standardize, as an analytical tool used by a range of disciplines to simplify analysis. As an example from economics, where we familiar and unrealistic assumption of the rational behavior of individuals as consumers and producers, denying the variety of behavior. Here, if applied to Penang and any selected group, for example, if we were to accept a stereotypical depiction of the Chinese in Malaysia, they're supposed to be rich in comparison to other communities. It would not take into account differences in employment, in place of residence, among some criteria, among many others, which would result in variations in income levels. For instance, a fisherman in Philippines will not be expected to enjoy the lifestyle of someone in Jesselton Road. So too, a person from the Glen Jetties, wealthy, is in quite a different place compared with someone residing in Tanjung. We are well aware that rural locations are vastly different from urban landscapes. However, it cannot be denied they are part and parcel, integral parts of one country. And then, as we look at the snapshots, there will be many of the peoples who have converged on Penang, the term multicultural population due to the diversity of its inhabitants. This is hardly surprising when added to that are the trading partners from their vast sister groups. So if you will bear with me, after this you will see tables and tables. Okay, this is the peoples. You try, you have to prick your exit from Malays and Buddhists, Acehnese, Batas, Chinese, Chulias, Bengalis, Burmese and Siamese, Arabs, Armenians, Parsis, native Christians, Catholics, everywhere. This is in 1820. Only those who are used in certain courts will be familiar with this. I guess probably cannot read it. I also have difficulties some of the time, so I will try to give an example of what they are trying to say. From the top, where from, tonnage, cargo, where bound, when, the date of departure, and nationality of the captains. So you have Bombay, address, 400 tons, sundries, yes, that's how they write. Going to perhaps Borneo, I can't read that. Then next you have Jumsalon, Junseon, 200 tonnage, tin, to the coast of Pavilion. Sorry, so on and so forth. Okay. This is clearer. It's like that. What you saw earlier. A little later, that was 1790, this is 1828 already, where you saw the population. So if you see the first three, Calcutta and the rest of it, they are the most, right? Together. After that, of course, England, China. Then you have Siam, Tenasserim, because they record Tenasserim fort rather than Burma. Then you have Sumatra, Achin, and then down. Okay? So we have that. This is Abu Lugon, a very famous author of the 13th century world system, before the more famous Emmanuel Stein, etc. This is borrowed from Wikipedia, the book, unfortunately, is from Wikipedia. So, anyway, number 7, Eastern India, and number 8, China. Those are the overlaps with Southeast Asia. We start with the laboring classes. Unfortunately, we have no names, but you can see without them, there's no trade. There's no shipping. These are some samples which you can find all of them in the biographical dictionary from Kasaran. Those of you who remember Beach Street, all the textile firms, Kasaran was one of them. Kasaran now is no longer as a textile firm in Penang. Only the textile firm is permanent. So this then of course you have the rest. You have Arumugam Pillai, the most famous landowner, times, lending money to a lot of people, and there you are, the big names of the time. And from one from Yemen, Turbulent, quite a well-known name today. Yeah. These are just samples from Changzhou, because Changzhou, the Hokkien from Changzhou is what Penang Hokkien is. The Hokkien in Penang, Medan, and Phuket. The Zhou, Zhou up north, that's the Hokkien in Singapore. So this is just a snapshot again. And this is Sumatra. Again, a snapshot from these various parts. They've all come to Penang. I guess maybe some of the most famous one would be Straits in Hadith, of the buildings that are Nakuda kecil, of course. Earliest, the digital mosque. Later, we have trade of Penang. Then here again, you can see what is really a lot. Calcutta, Madras, Bombay together. You have China because the China trade is very important via Penang. And then Siam, that's west coast of Siam. Okay. And of course, sorry, I'm listening. Then Peninsula is really so, if you see the exports rather than the imports, shows you what has left Penang. So the UK, quite a bit from the region, then that's how they report. Quite a bit also. Then you go down to Siam, Sumatra. Sumatra, I think the next biggest after, I think that's about it. All the snapshots. Turning to the four topics to be addressed today, I will touch on first, which is good to in the introduction. The following topics I leave to my co-researcher. Some aspects which the book did not have space to fix. On the buildings, on Laksa, on Tom King, as he was known to the British, but his real name is Kam Kian King. Never mind. So, the resilience of Penangites. Please remember this. To illustrate the mindset of Penangites from early on, the book focuses on some of the major hurdles encountered which they had to face. Not reminiscing, as in recollecting past experiences, pleasure, but bringing to light the persistence demonstrated to prevail over the turbulent terrain which Penangites have had to face. In chapter 3, we see the difficulties of Penang's relations with Dutch in Sumatra and officials. First, the trade with Sumatra, that it merits a lengthy discussion is to be expected, given that the two-way flows of people inevitably accompany the transactions from Sumatran ports. From Sumatran ports, back to the king. Here we are. From Panakute down below, on top of Siak, Lingga, which is, you go further up, Delhi, Aceh, Sito, came some of the earliest settlers. Even before Aceh's graves from the 16th century, Penang, Perak Road, Dan Kramat, and then you have Chia Chun Seng, who came from Aceh. So Tu Tio Tiao Siat, also known as Changpei, Big Yang, in Chow Paxi. All you will get in the Bible. If you see the maps, which I showed you earlier, you will also see where they come from and Sumatra's part in the trade. So Penang has had to struggle with the maneuverings, trade policies, of the Dutch. Sorry, that's all I have. As for Penang's interaction with Singapore, there's only time today to briefly touch on recurring issues which remain unresolved from the 19th and 20th centuries. When the capital of the Straits settlement was relocated from Penang to Singapore in 1832, it marked the beginning of the proposals not being given satisfactory consideration. In fact, constantly blocked. Two major modes of contention were revenue sharing. Inadequate as Penang received a portion of what was generated in Penang, and the second is the upgrading of the without revenue, there will be an upgrade. What needs to be reiterated, what needs to be stressed, is that of the observation of Governors Sir Harry St. George Ord in 1869, which questions the conventional views of Penang sideline. So, I won't bother to read it, okay? I will only draw your attention to line 1, 2, 3, 4. The trade figures, 9.5 million, so 2.5 in 1865 and 66, showed an increase of 51% for Singapore, but 70%. And then, with trade and shipping expanding through the decades, creating the need for larger facilities, Penang was, however, denied revenue collected, as the chairman of the Penang Chamber of Commerce, Walter Ottheim, explained in his very, very lengthy address, like 2 pages of it in small print. So here, I just give to you what he has asked, and I will read to you a little more. What the people of Penang at present ask for is proper attention to their just demands. The most important of which is that the sum accruing from the sale of beach lands. The sale of the beach lands should be credited back to a suspense account to be used hereafter for the sole benefit of Penang. Now, in return, I put the question to you as a bookkeeper and as a man of business. Supposing you are an accountant for 2 partners of which each possess landed property. Right. Part of the landed property of one partner is sold on the condition that the proceeds go to his credit. Sounds fair. But instead of putting it to his credit, you, wishing to make the firm Straits settlement, appear more prosperous than it really is, puts the proceeds to the credit of the firm in the Straits settlement. Similar sentiments were expressed in McClarty's Affairs of the Colony in 1893, namely a subsection which is entitled Revenue, which opened with the subtitle. This reads, the subtitle reads, Awkward Figures Again, Way to Chaos. Singapore credits itself with bank revenue. Go further to 1940, Jules Martin, chairman of the Penang Chamber of Commerce, provides us with the likely basis of Penang's frustration that by reason of their being in close contact with government officers, the merchants in Singapore were in an advantageous position compared to those in Penang. Hence, the views of the former in Singapore business. And if we fast forward to the 20th century, Penang's contraport trade continuing to be healthy in the 1960s, with Thailand and Indonesia developing their imports. This is, I put it to you, a testament to Penang's perseverance to be the port city of choice in the southern interval of Southeast Asia. Now over to Jeff Sia for a lighter mood.
Okay. Okay. Instead of reading excerpts, although there is one entry that I will touch on briefly in a little while, I'd like to share a little bit about my experience of this wonderful journey, notably the research, the political space that Penang occupied, or its geographic expansion, and material culture and pop personality who say in publication again finally appears after 169 years. Mr. Kam King. You can get on your phones right now and try the internet search, but I don't think you'll find anything. And I've just realized that I forgot to say good morning, Dr. Anwar, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm saying that now. Truly, I'm not sure that I could remember everything that we did. There was just so much. And we had to leave a great deal out in order to whittle this down to much more manageable size. Besides, it's often easier to remember what we grudgingly threw out rather than what we eventually kept in and focused on. In any case, the book is written, and there is a background there, but everything we eventually decided to was more important in the telling of the story of Penang through the lens of her trading activities and the personalities involved in the trade, both merchant and administrators. Right. The internet and the World Wide Web and the various efforts of a great many people around all over the globe allow us to draw on a huge range and volume of primary sources. And rather than to rely merely on secondary sources, we actually took a look at a lot of contemporaneous documents. Right. For example, and there are too many examples to name here now, Google Incorporated with their university and library partners all over the globe gives us access to contemporaneous publications, dailies, weeklies, monthlies, annuals, government or official publications, apart from the scholarly and semi-scholarly works of Penang's many early administrators. It would be nice to see in more recent times our administrators doing the same thing, but that's what they used to do in those days. You find ex-first assistants, ex-governors, all these people coming up with volumes and volumes of writing about the trade, about the planting, and so on and so forth. And the Citizens Archivist Project, under the auspices of Singapore Government's National Archives, gives us access to their archives' Straits supplements records. This more recent effort follows on the heels of Singapore National Library Board's searchable newspaper database. And while we have not heard of anything like this being done with our national archives, although I did bring it up, I think, around about 2005 or something like that, we might hope that Penang could kickstart something similar in the not too distant future. That would be nice. Also, of that inspirational poem, if, for those of you who know it, I think another one called The Lung Man of Laru, as well as the tale of Mowgli the Man-Child from the Jungle Book, Kipling believed that storytelling would ensure the lessons of history are never forgotten. If we have succeeded here, that is what I hope we have done with Turbulent Terrain. While it is an abbreviated history of the trade of Penang, it's so much more than that because of those very stories we have attempted to tell in the limited space and time that we have. In this poem, Kipling suggests the importance of remembering history. Many others, themselves historical figures, have attempted to explain the importance of history. Bonaparte saw at once that it was the victors who determined what history recorded. Orwell cautioned that one day all of history might be a lie, a sobering if not frightening thought. Santayana warned us that we would continue to make the same mistakes again and again and again and again and again until we finally realize what those mistakes are. Marx asserted that finding ourselves unprepared the first time is tragic, allowing ourselves to suffer it the second time, a joke. King saw us as the product of history, and Truman mentions history still to be told, and what a surprise it might be when it is eventually told. Now, every Penang school child ought to know that the English East India Company established a colony in Penang in 1786, and the founding father of that colony, of course, Captain Francis Lai. They also ought to know that it was George Counter, then first assistant, later interim governor, who brokered on behalf of Governor Leaf a treaty with the Sultan of Penang that led to the establishment of Province Wellesley across the channel from Penang Island. Now, those with the inclination might then search the libraries for information on how society and trade developed in those two places. What they might not know, however, is that Penang had another territory. And for those of them who already know this, it was, of course, the Dindings, known today as Manjot, and at the time included Pangkor Island and all the other small islands thereabouts, Lumut, Berwas, Setiawan, Pantai Remis, and Ayatau. Quite a bit of territory and quite a bit further down south. Some who might know this might trace it back to the engagement between Governor Sir Andrew Clark and the native chiefs of Perak at Pangkor in 1874. What they might not know, however, is that we can trace Penang's sovereignty over the Dindings to an earlier treaty brokered by Captain James Lowe in October 1826 in the time of Penang's Governor Robert Fullerton. So you see a lot of Singapore places you can trace the names to Penang, including Raffles, who used to be our junior secretary to government. There we go. Right. The Bengal government, however, refused to ratify that treaty, largely because it promised Perak protection from the Siamese and the East India Company had a policy of non-interference. Also, they were friends with Siam. Governor Fullerton argued his case, and the Bengal government agreed to acknowledge the treaty, even if they didn't ratify it. So really, it was neither here nor there. I'll admit that you have this treaty, but I'm not going to be held by it. Now, going further back to 1824, we find the reason why the governor had his eye on that territory. In his political and commercial considerations relative to the Malayan Peninsula, Anderson found Perak, source of tin for Penang Island, in a state of anarchy, and believed Penang's tin trade would be better safeguarded by establishing a small British government factory on Pangkor Island, not just to collect tin from Perak, but also from Selangor and Singapore. And it was also to safeguard Penang's interest from interference by the Dutch, as it was from disturbances from Perak, for he notes in the ruins of a Dutch fort something there bearing the date 1743. Oops. You see my next slide. In any event, Penang's sovereignty over the Dindings or Manjung was finally established by 1874 at Pangkor, by which time British presence was already well established at Penang and on the peninsula all the way down to Singapore, which sorted out the problem of Dutch interference, and at that time efforts were underway to pacify both Larut and Perak. I say Larut and Perak because they were considered separate territories at the time. The Dindings was eventually returned to Perak to be administered by the government in 1935. So you can see that Penang had it for quite a long time. The curious might wonder about the intercourse between Penang proper and the Dindings between 1874 and 1935, or even earlier, if there was migration from as early as 1826. How much of Penang capital was used to develop the place? One might wonder. Which personalities were involved? And how did Penang actually manage to administer a territory divided as it was between territories in between? Interesting questions. None of this is in the book, by the way. From geographic expansion and then contraction, we shift to material culture, in this case, food, which is a topic close to the hearts of many Penangites, I'm sure. Mention laksa and what comes to mind? Penang laksa, Kedah laksa, Siamese laksa, Nonya laksa, Johor laksa, Sarawak laksa, Kari laksa. Some are soupy, some are dry, almost dry. What do they have in common? Some would have us believe it is the spicy character of the dish. There is laksa flavored instant noodles, and instant noodles in a cup. There are wet premixes. All you need to do is to boil up some vermicelli, noodles or pasta, mix it all together, and voila! No? Well, I'm not so sure now, having done the research for this book. A study, here we go. A study of the trade and shipping pages on page 3 and 4 of incomplete issues of the Penang Gazette and Straits Chronicle from April 1838 to March 1839 suggests a possibility. Here are recorded exports of laksa, sold by the boxes and the pickles. There appear to have been no recorded imports of the same. During that time, is recorded exports of laksa from Penang to Padang, Singapore, and Penang. So, as a quick aside, this does not, however, give license to the most mischievous of us who want to go and tell the Singaporeans, hey, we had laksa and we were selling it to you in the 1800s. The research is not exhaustive, so I would recommend doing that. Although not definitive evidence, however, one might surmise that with exports recorded and no recorded imports of the same, that laksa was a product of local manufacture of sufficient quality and quantity so as to be a regular export item. But what was it? What is laksa? Surely it cannot be a ready-to-eat premix, just add water and boil it up. Well, some 19th century recipes from Dutch Indonesia give us an idea. Now, these are 3 recipes from the Kitab Masakan India from Lange and Co. of Batavia in 1845. So we were frying up laksa and God knows what else in 1845. And there you see laksa goreng, laksa Cina, that's how they spelled it. That's Dutch Malay, yeah, or Dutch Indonesian, and laksa Portuguese. To those 3, 2 more recipes were included in Lange's 1859 edition, laksa Bali, laksa Sarani, atau Portuguese. What if I pronounced that correctly? In any case, it would appear to suggest that laksa actually refers to the ingredient, the noodle, and as sometimes described in dictionaries and export lists, rice vermicelli, which I think is the traditional rice-based laksa noodle rather than a finished dish. I don't know if there are any people from Singapore, from Kuala Lumpur here. They might find this very strange. This is an opaque noodle, which may mean that it ought not to be called laksa if it is served with this, which is what the KL people are probably more familiar with, the translucent tapioca-based noodle. Or really, any other noodle, any noodle other than the traditional rice-based laksa noodle I showed you just now that we know and love and which other people have treacherously attempted to substitute over the decades. Bad them. In his article published in the second issue of the Peranakan in 2015, Baba Peter Lee has put together some remarkable findings dating back to 1719. 1719, before the founding of Penang, or before the founding of, to be politically correct, before the founding of Captain Francis Light's colony. Some of you may already know that according to a publication, a dictionary, Persian, Arabic, and English, published in 1829, that lakcha, lakshah, and lakishah are terms for vermicelli or slices of paste put into broth. I shudder because at this moment it almost seems like banh mi or mi hoon kueh could be called laksa. Yeah? Peter Lim wrote, and I quote, "The earliest reference that I could find appears in an English letter written way back in 1719 by Chan Jang Hua, a Baba from Malacca, to an Englishman, John Scattergood. The letter concerns business matters, but a postscript at the end has a most striking and odd request. Baba Chan asked Mr. Scattergood to be kind enough to bring on my account 2 picos of meat soul caught in that land, Black Sea, for incidental expenses. Miso could refer to miswa, which is Hokkien for 5-bit noodles, and lakasi might be laksa. This suggests at that time it might have been a general term for any noodle, unquote. Mr. Lim writes a great deal more, but we won't get into that here and now. I suppose the important thing to take out from all of this is that there are stories, lots of stories to be told. Yeah? So then, those were just 2 of the stories that didn't make it into the book. And there were very many more that were left out. Perhaps they will make it into future publications, perhaps not. What is clear is that there are many more stories about Penang just waiting to be told, and with the convenience of the internet and the efforts of those people who are making publications and documents from the past accessible to the researcher, This is a wonderful time to find and to tell those stories of events, places, culture, and especially people. When it comes to people, relatively very little is known about non-European personalities. I'm pleased to say that there is something in the book on Kuala Lumpur that is both interesting and insightful, but then he was a rather well-known personality, was our Chepan. What is the common there? The not so well-known. One, before this, quite unknown person who did make it into the book as touched on by me. Largely because we had to leave him out of a previous publication, the Biographical Dictionary of Mercantile Personalities of Penang. I wanted to put it in. We didn't have space for it. And Professor Lowe sort of said she would fry it into this book. It is a certain Mr. Kam Tian King, son of opium farmer Kam Si Yang. You would be hard-pressed to find him searching the internet because at that time he was known by all and sundry as Tom King. The why of that I do not know, and I can only imagine that it was bestowed on him by people who found it easier to pronounce and remember. He popped up because of the wide variety of sources we employed in our research, cross-referencing, and his full Chinese name only appeared in one issue of the Penang Gazette and Straits Chronicle from 1847. Now, Tom King, or Captain King, as you can see, was engaged in very many different trades under the name of T King & Co. or Tian King & Co. at East Street. Used to sell the lottery and give out the results and all of that. And I think he did pianos and sold pianos and all sorts of things, bolts of cloth. The number of trades and businesses he was in boggles my mind. A measure of Tom King's stature in the community can be seen in the way he was given his final send-off when passing from this world too soon. Not only was his funeral well attended, the kind of people attending showing how well he was connected and how diverse his connections were, but the funeral procession was led by the naval band of 72-year-old Rear Admiral Sir Thomas John Cochrane, who had specially sent them there to honor the memory of Kam Tian King. I think this is someone that we should get to know. No doubt the Kam clan in Penang will be pleased to know that they were represented in Penang in the 1840s, and that at least one of their forefathers was very well thought of by all and sundry. His short biography runs to about 3 pages and strings together several interesting and surprising stories that also give an insight into the customs and practices at the time. How many more like Tom King are there whose stories are waiting to be told and from whose lives we might learn? Very many, I should imagine. And not just men, but women too, like Tan Se Siang. Just waiting for someone, perhaps someone like you, to come along, dig them up, and tell their tales. All we need to do is to find the stories, tell them, and history will not be forgotten. And with that, I'd like to leave you with the words of a famous historian, better known as the man who remarked, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely great men are almost always bad men." British historian and politician Lord Acton also noted that history is not a burden on the soul, a burden on the memory, but an illumination of the soul. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much.
In closing, as historians, they try to look into direction in the past and the present to establish continuities, or alternatively, discontinuities change structures. I draw on renowned orator who has provided strong support of this analysis. Then you read, not to know what happened before one was born, is a child. There is also Australian writer Marianne Curley who said, "For what is man's life if it is not linked with the life of future generations by the memories of the past?" I leave you with one example. A mention of an issue of prominence, hot topic in the GE post general election 14 namely the projects involving construction companies from China which have been found to have brought about enormous national debt accumulation with multiple negative ramifications, undesirable consequences of shares with many other countries as a result of China's infrastructure drive, from Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Xavier to name a few, but there are reports that 8 countries face debt crisis: Cambodia, Laos, Maldives, Montenegro, Pakistan, Djibouti, Pakistan, Kazakhstan. All levels cited in the next two. Some examples. Currency. Our ringgit was once at par with Singapore dollar. Of course, another example, businesses shutting down where even as labour suffer unemployment and income, some employers may also have to accept all living standards. The list is very long. You may well ask, how does this relate to the narrative in this book? If we look at current developments at the international level and project local in its broader global context, we have China's Cold War. Cold War was the first name in 2013. Later now it's shortened to BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. China's new Silk Road, a belt of overland corridors and a maritime road. Here I refer you to chapter 1, which sets out the connectivity of earlier times. This is the Silk Road that connected Han China to the Roman Empire. So, it's mainly overland, but there are many Silk Roads, not just one. So, look at this. This is today's news. Although longer analytical timeframes have been found to be useful to relate the local to the global, it was only in the 18th century that the German explorer Ferdinand von Richthofen identified silk as the key and indeed the most important trade commodity since first century CE, known as it provides a preview of China's expansionist efforts under President Xi Jinping, which can be seen as an illustration, hopefully depicting on how the past can inform the present. However, there have been suggestions that political and strategic objectives are equally important, if not more essential than version with none other than TDM, Dr. Mahathir, calling this phenomenon a new form of colonialism. Anyway, the past is like insights into possible new directions of linkages. Of course, my hope is that you will find the information and time to dip into snippets or even lengthier accounts of the stories. All having contributed to make Penang what it is, many efforts exploring Penang are well worth your reading. Since, as you saw, some companies still in operation, expanding their businesses, or nearly retaining their origin. I mentioned Hasaram, one of the textile firms, then as General Merchant Firm in Beach Street in the 1960s, moved to Bishop Street in 1925, and only to Kuala Lumpur in 2000. Our Hasaram, Sindran have to with Malaysia's Habib, I think, doesn't need introduction. Any of you, it's shops all over the country. And then AA Anthony, those of you who have stocks, stockbroking firm in earlier times. Now it has moved to KL under so the last one. I'm sure a happy outcome to the Penangites and to those with an interest in the northern sub-region of Southeast Asia stretching north to South Thailand and east to northeast would be to see more contributors joining the never-ending journey of adding to the multi-faceted story, bringing with them fresh perspectives. And if today one outcome has been to provide an impetus towards writing more Penang story, calling can be considered to have been not a waste of time to some person in its form. A reminder from internationally acclaimed historian and leading scholar of Asian studies, Paul Gangu, he suggested that knowledge of the past is really meaningful within this world. Put in another way, it may be possible that understanding gained from history can translate to make a difference in our lives. Suggestions. More can be written about Kapal Singh, our hero from Penang. Or, of course, Tan Pan Eng, who has so many prizes won. Most famous prize. Then another PFS, Kochai, Malaysian, told by readers like this, the 34th most trusted Malaysian. And then for those of you who move all the place, we have Farida, American, who has led KL Pack. I think in Penang it's called Pack. Which has been for 15 years leading finally for the missions.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey, for the lecture. It's often very tough to moderate these sessions because you sort of encapsulate everything into one sentence. And you know, when I read the book, I had some role to play because I think in the ancient days when I was a research assistant, I kind of helped Dr. Loh a little bit go through all these records. And I think one thing that that whole experience had taught me is that really I've got to go through the details. I'm not very details person, so I'm very thankful to Dr. Loh and Jeffrey and our dear friend Marcus Landon for plowing through these records. So in a nutshell, what I feel the book is trying to do is to explain why Penang people are so kiam siap, kiam su, and kiam si. In many ways, it's really a book about resilience. And I think it's very important to understand how we ended up here, the different routes of coming here, also the people who were already here, and that interaction that has given rise to such an exciting contribution that Penang has made to Malaysia and continues to make to Malaysia. I know my colleague Faizal from Johor. These are the people who mix laksa with spaghetti. So there's another kind of modernity going on down there. So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions or pressing issues that you want to take up with them, you can also disagree with them. I have the mic, so I sort of because there's two mics, so I'll be the winner white, so I'll sort of come to you if you have a question. So you sort of raise your hands and introduce yourself and we can begin. Let me ask questions because I have to ask Jonathan to ask a question. Terrible.
I love this crowd.
No questions at all? Obviously very clear. I have to ask questions. Oh. Pink has a question. Alright.
You know, one big, sorry, it's a small question to Jeffrey is, why did you say it was strange for KL Lights to, you know, see the noodles, the origin and why is it that we were not familiar with these noodles?
No, if you go to Kuala Lumpur, it's okay. It's been addressing large crowds for a long time. If you go to Kuala Lumpur, I think, and in many other places in Malaysia, you can't really find the traditional type of laksa bowl that we call it laksa bowl that Penang people are familiar with. It's handmade, I think, with something like a muruku maker, and you squish the flour base into boiling water, and it basically is one tiny little blob. You know, the Singaporeans know this, are very familiar with it. They do it. In Kuala Lumpur, when I went down, I had a bit of a culture shock when it came to food. I found that Hokkien mee was not the prawn mee that I knew and loved. It was this horrible black stuff. And then I found that, you know, when I was given laksa, I said, this is mee kai bak. You know, because it was this translucent, chewy thing. And I was used to laksa with the consistency of ketupat, you know, rice, you know, and there's a huge difference between the chewy tapioca thing, which has more in common with snowflake and chatai than it has with our type of laksa. So, by the way, Ping, it's nice to see you again after so many years. Say hello to Joan. I haven't seen her in decades. I think the last time we saw each other was at Italy's launch of mothballs. Yeah, that was good. But really, there's so much, you know, of this going on, and you know, I saw this joke on the internet. You know, they were talking about, you know, the Penang Tunnel, which is a controversial issue. Penang Guy is very calm and all that. They're talking about another issue. Gang Guy was very calm and all that. They talk about Penang food. Oh, he gets up. You know, don't mess with my food. I think a lot of a lot of us cockroaches, yeah, I call us cockroaches because snacklers, step on us, cannot die, kind of people, are very sensitive about our food. So when I went to KL, and I had all these strange experiences, I said, oh my God, they're calling this Penang laksa, Penang char kway teow, right? Our Penang char kway teow looks a little bit black, but it's not because we put soy sauce in it the way that the Kuala Lumpur people do it. I'm a food, I'm a bit of a foodie, and I dabble in the kitchen as well. But the trick to good char kway teow, which is the same trick to good star fan, is you have to have an extremely hot wok. And those little black bits down there are the burnt bits of your char kway teow. So our kway teow comes out a bit more dry than the soggy mess that they try to pass off as Penang char kway teow in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, I get offended when I see Penang this and Penang that and Penang whatever, it's like a brand that's going to improve the pricing. So I hope that answers your question. Yes.
So thank you, really wonderful talk, and presentation as well. As an anthropologist, I really appreciated part about untold story, especially of common people. So I'm wondering, there's going to be a sequel, which you already have the title to, and it sounds brilliant. So when will it be out?
Because it takes forever. And we have way down to build years in location, or you come up with something that is slightly palatable to the reader. I don't know, but I certainly think that there are many more who could do much superior job than I can. Yes.
Again, thank you very much. That was very interesting, and particularly interesting to me as an accountant, because I always thought that accounts are endangered plant. I want to ask a question about the map of the road, and so when we were traveling in China, in Shanxi and Shanxi provinces, then I got to realize that the road is not my road, and our map actually illustrated it very well. But what I also learned from the trip there is that these routes are not only for but another important commodity, which is tea. And there were tea routes that were being developed with caravans of camels and all that went all the way from China to Europe. And I was wondering whether you had also looked into that in terms of both the overland routes as well as the maritime routes for tea, because Chinese tea, of course, is also a very important commodity.
Thank you for very interesting illustrations of what was going on. My question relates to banking. How do they, in the early times, keep their money, and when they were trading, and how do they account for each other? How much you pay for this and buy that? So that the currency and the banking system in those days.
Okay, one more question. Oh wow. Okay. The lady first, then the gentleman.
I was curious about one of your charts that said imports from North America, and I was wondering what kind of things were being imported from North America. Bison? Right?
My question was relating to Tang Tian Jing's father. It was mentioned that he was an opium grower. Where did he grow?
He didn't grow. He was an opium farmer, and farms were actually revenue farms. So they were given the license to manufacture opium, which was a very useful drug. If you read the journal of, so you know, he talks about the benefits of opium. I think
So,
questions before we.
tea, banks, bison, and opium. That order.
Demons, there are many roots that have been written, tea roots, but on the maritime trade of tea to Europe, I have not read. I've read about Southeast Asia up to Tibet with tea roots there. So I can't answer this.
Banking. How do they?
Well, I think you have to look at the different groups. The Armenians, the Parsis, the Persians, who went from Persia to India. They would have different systems. And then, of course, there are most transactions which were gentlemen's agreement. Yeah. But then
Bison.
not bison.
Bison. Not the banker. Rifles, no.
No, whether it was.
No, what we know from North America?
I don't know.
Actually, we do have those reports.
No, but with different dates.
Yeah, different dates.
Right now we got the American export mission at the heart in consultant services from Trump.
And if I can jump back to the last one, right? Which also has to do with that question of North America. Penang being a cosmopolitan society meaning at that time we didn't have to worry about halal and all these other issues. We imported not just wines, and we imported them from all over, including France and other places. We had a fondness for importing rum, which we later on manufactured because of our sugarcane plantations in province Wellesley. Earlier on, all the way from Captain Francis Ly's time, we were importing rum, and then we discovered this wonderful product called opium. And I think one of the either the members of Parliament or the Assemblyman, Selangor MP or Assemblyman, I think, has been made an address in Parliament to get permission from the government to plant marijuana in Selangor, because the revenue that you make from it, beats palm oil, hands down. They make a killing from having that. So we had revenue farms in Penang all the way back to Captain Francis Ly's time. We had revenue farms for opium, where the farmer was given the right to manufacture or import and sell the product. We had revenue farms for alcohol. We had revenue farms for pork, which invariably went to the Chinese. For tobacco, for all sorts of things. And it was basically the government's tax collection system, which I think is a lot more efficient than what we have today, judging by the tax department's attempts to try and give discounts to people or fines for not paying their taxes and stuff like that. So, Kam Siang, that's Kam Kian King's father, was an opium farmer. he had, what do you call it, the rights to import, manufacture, or sell opium. And if we take a look at the Singapore Archive Straits Settlement records, again, this is not in the book, but if we take a look at the Singapore Government Straits Settlement records, we can find Kam Siang down there. A little bit difficult because unless and until the records have been transcribed by volunteers, it's a wonderful system, that project, the Citizen Archivist project, because basically the government provides the server, and a lot of the labor is done by the general public. You register yourself, have an account down there, and some people will scan the documents and put them in PDFs, and other people then go down there and read the longhand, which I think millennials will not be able to understand today, unless you actually learn how to do cursive. You have a big problem trying to read handwritten stuff. But you'll find in the Straits Settlement records, in documents, the name Kam Siang as opium farmer pops up. And you also discover that he was, in a way, connected, I think, if I'm not wrong, to Lau Ami of the famous, what do you call it, flour mill and bakery and all of that. It's a noble profession, opium farming. More power to them.
There's one thing I'll say. Any other questions?
Go back to.
Go back. Agnes.
Yeah.
Faisal.
I have no data on what we got from it. Of course, what we export is the same as we into Gambia. There's a table for things that it's so far away with such a distance. Possibly it will come from Europe.
What do you call it? General President Ulysses Grant visited Penang. Did you know that? Yes, he did.
The Alabama, the Civil War King.
Penang has been proud.
Yes.
Ulysses Grant.
Can we make some more questions? So that.
Sorry, just to inform the audience that there has been a very good PhD thesis on the Hokkien tea merchants in Singapore. This is mainly through interviews, archival materials, as well as from internal records. Well, principally the sources are what we call announcements of tea merchants in Singapore and Hong Kong. And the interviews were conducted mainly through the unemployed tea merchants of Hokkien. And we have the same thing in Penang also. I think we all remember what is still in existence. The old man tea. Can you remember? Yeah, now it's located on somewhere at the junction of the traffic lights. And formerly it used to be in Chania, Jiangwei, where I was, there for a long time. So a similar project could be taken up by some interested researchers. So as for tea, I think that there is abundant materials as long as you make efforts. And I think the descendants of the Opium tea, the Tang family, is still in Penang. And talking about that, you can sing the medical hall. I was told that the account books are there upstairs. So nobody has made an effort to search for them. I think it's a matter of labor, hard labor, should I put it. So your students might be able to do something.
I think the next question was first millennium.
Yeah.
Not
During the period that you are writing about. Okay.
yeah, the period of Roman Empire.
But I'm glad is Mr. Tan brought that up because there's a challenge that I can throw to you guys and to the rest of the guys. There's a whole lot of material out there that bananas like me don't have access to. By banana I mean yellow Chinese on the outside, but white inside, right? I went to 6 areas. I couldn't speak Chinese to save my life. And stuff like 100 years of the Hakkas in Penang and stuff like that. That's all available in Chinese. There are loads of stuff, actually material out there written, but in Chinese that I can't get access to because I'm very lazy and I won't, go and study Mandarin and stuff like that. So I can't read them myself. And I can't even get my niece, my brother and my sister-in-law down there, my niece studied Chinese, but when I mentioned the word research and translation, boom, it disappeared. So I get no help. So it would be wonderful, those who can, they might not be scholars, they might not be good at research, they might be able to translate. Those who can translate. Have the information out there so that the rest of us can use it.
Well, first of all, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I look forward to reading the book. My name is Richard Engelhardt. I am an advisor to Think City. And one of the things that struck me was your reference to the very useful archives that exist in Singapore. Archive program and other ways. And I have also experience with a similar kind of situation in Pakistan, where they were also struggling with the fact that the archives were basically either British or Indian, did not address the local history of Pakistan, and have developed a very robust citizens archive program. Now, it would seem to me that if we are trying to, in Think City and all of us doing local history, looking at how we are going to mobilize the past to provide resilience for the future development of a city. One of the tools that we should look at developing and investing in is this citizens archive. And as you rightly said, this now is a possibility with the internet being the platform where everyone can contribute, whether as a researcher or a translator or simply contributing materials to this. So I would like to actually suggest as something that perhaps can be adapted through PhD and Big City, a serious development of a Penang Citizens Archive project. Facilitate all this other research, but not only just for the sake of research, but for being able to use it to continue the resilience that you were talking about as in urban development.
As advice illness, because all these are pending, just waiting for it to come on.
The new generation definitely will lead the future. I think we can find out any other questions. Yeah, one more, Python 2.
Just to learn on what we need to learn from our past. Penang lost out to Singapore, and you pointed out, although it took a long time, we still lost out to Singapore. And I see a future where we're going to lose our airport to Penang very soon. No, it's just very sad is that if we follow the same trajectory, it's going to be sad.
I think the thing to learn about that is how we manage to overcome obstacles. The book is full of stories about how not only were opportunities that we had taken away from us or blocked, blocked. We were blocked by the by the English East India Company, blocked by Bengal, we were blocked by Singapore, and somehow we found a way around all of that. We were blocked when business through efforts, rightly or wrongly, saw Georgetown lose its city status and saw Penang lose its free port status. We've overcome that, haven't we? Yeah? We find a way around things or over them or under them. I won't get into that other issue. But we find a way.
Okay, on that note, enthusiasm and optimism, I would like to invite the Chairman of NCT, Dr. Ahmad Fazal, to give his views, and then after that we will do a launching ceremony. Yeah, Dr. Ahmad.
You sit down. Yes. Before you sit down, that was just mesmerizing. Really mesmerizing, and I really enjoyed the stories that you told and the way that you told. I am a Laksa, a long time promoter of the idea of the International Laksa Festival. Headquarters. Even at one stage bought the website Laksa, but somebody else bought it subsequently, and I let it lapse. I want to start off by just, because I'm so mesmerized, to give you a little gift each, and then I want you to sit down while I say a few things. And this is an entry in the Encyclopedia Britannica. In 1817, Penang, the Prince of Wales Island, has this amount of attention. The Encyclopedia Britannica, and it describes in detail. And the whole story of the Prince of Wales Island is nothing more than all about trade. It was very interesting, and it was viewed and so forth. And so this is my little gift from my I'm also going to sit down, although I find these chairs with wheels very dangerous. I have fallen twice now. When actually you get up and not know that the chair has slipped back. Then you just sit at the little edge of it, and then it goes down and you fall on your back. I think these kinds of things need to be always thought of also. But it's nice to be able to move. How many of you have ever read the book of the history of the world in 6 glasses? Anybody ever heard of the book? I've got a copy of the book if anybody wants to read it. And it's the whole history of the drinks that we have. And the story of the world is told through the story of each one of these drinks, from wine to beer to the hard drinks, to tea to coffee. how coffee civilized Europe. Before that, people just got drunk, and you never could have a decent conversation. But when coffee was introduced through Turkey, to the Islamic movement, and you had a whole way of relaxing and talking with this particular drink, and you began to have intelligent discussion, and people say that Renaissance and a whole new world that went beyond the Vikings, and just fighting and so on. But so the stories, I think, of drinks are really fascinating in the Assam, many stories. I want to also thank you. I have read the book for remembering another very special person in that book, and that was Dr. Rollins Bonney, amazing historian. He wrote his PhD was on Kedah. And one of the things that you mentioned in detail, and I'm glad you mentioned, was the whole way in which the fraud of the way in which Penang began to be owned by the East India Company. It's very much a bit like the Dinding story of Louis, so-called will help you, you give that to us, and the whole illegitimacy in a way of Francis Light coming here and putting up the flag and occupying this place without actually a legal and legitimate basis. So thanks for remembering him, because again, he is forgotten. I was fascinated by the many stories that you told, and I want to acknowledge how in this last, you can say, quarter of the century, we have triggered off something